The coffin had barely been lowered into ground when my son leaned in, his grip tightening on my arm like a vice. "Sell the house," he whispered, his breath cold against my ear. "Or else." I stared at him, my own flesh and blood, and saw something in his eyes I didn't recognize. Something wrong. That was the moment I realized. My wife's death was an accident, and the house we'd lived in for 20 years? It wasn't just a home. It was a tomb. What happened next was something I could have never imagined. From which country are you enjoying this story? Let us know in the comments and subscribe, because the truth I uncovered in the attic wasn't just a secret. It was a warning, and by the time you hear it, it might already be too late. The rain fell in heavy sheets, turning the freshly dug earth into mud as they lowered Evelyn into the ground. I stood there, numb, watching as the love of my life disappeared beneath the soil. The black umbrellas around me blurred into one shapeless mass. The murmur condolences nothing but noise. My hands clenched around the folded program in my grip. Her smiling face staring back at me from the photo on the cover. 6 months. That's how long it took for the cancer to eat her alive. 6 months of watching her fade, of holding her hand as she took her last breath. And now this, the finality of it, the silence. People shuffled around me, their hands brushing my shoulders, their voices low and careful. I didn't hear them. All I could hear was the absence of her, the way the house would feel without her in it, the way the mornings would no longer smell like her coffee brewing, the way the evenings would no longer carry the sound of her humming as she moved through the rooms. Then a hand gripped my arm. Tight, too tight. I turned my head, blinking water from my eyes. Rain or tears, I didn't know, and saw Daniel, my son, staring at me with an expression I didn't recognize. His jaw was set, his eyes dark. "We need to talk," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, but the words cut through the noise like a blade. "Sell the house. Or else." I stared at him. The rain dripped from his hair, down his forehead, but he didn't wipe it away. He just held my gaze, unblinking. "What?" The word came out hoarse, barely a sound. He leaned in closer, his breath hot against my ear despite the chill in the air. "You heard me. Sell it. Fast. Or else." Then he pulled back, gave my arm one last squeeze, a warning, not comfort, and walked away, disappearing into the crowd of mourners. I stood there frozen, the mud seeping into my shoes. Or else what? The drive home was a blur. The windshield wipers beat back and forth, useless against a storm. My hands gripped the wheel, knuckles white, but my mind was somewhere else. Daniel's words played on a loop in my head. Asterisk, sell the house. Or else. Asterisk. Why? This was Evelyn's house. Our house. The place where we raised Daniel, where we built a life. The place where she took her last breath. Every corner of it was filled with her. The thought of selling it, of walking away from the last physical piece of her, made my chest ache. But the way Daniel had said it, the look in his eyes, it wasn't suggestion. It was a threat. The house loomed ahead as I pulled into the driveway, dark and empty. No lights in the windows. No Evelyn waiting at the door. Just silence. I stepped inside, the familiar creak of the floorboards greeting me like an old friend. The scent of lavender still lingered in the air, faint but there, her favorite. I closed my eyes and inhaled, pretending for just a second that she was still here, that any moment she'd call my name from the kitchen. But she didn't. I shrugged off my soak coat and hung it up, my movement slow, mechanical. The house felt different. Not just empty, asterisk wrong star. Like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Daniel was waiting for me in the living room. He hadn't even bothered to turn on a light. He sat in the armchair by the fireplace, his face half-shadowed, his fingers steepled in front of him. "You didn't answer me," he said. I swallowed. "I don't understand." He sighed, rubbing his temples like I was some kind of burden. "It's not complicated. Dad, sell the house. Pack your things. Leave." "Why?" My voice cracked. "This is your mother's." "Mom's gone," he snapped, his voice sharp enough to make me flinch. "And if you don't sell this place, you're going to wish you had." The words hung between us, heavy, What does that mean? I asked quietly. He leaned forward. The light from the street lamp outside catches eyes just enough to make them gleam. It means there are things you don't know. Things about Mom. About this house. He paused. Things that got her killed. My breath stopped. The doctors had said cancer. We'd watched it happen. The tests, the treatments, the slow, painful decline. There was no mystery. No question. But the way Daniel said it, asterisk got her killed, asterisk. It wasn't figure of speech. He meant it. I opened my mouth, but no words came. Daniel stood, brushing past me. Think about it, he said, but don't take too long. Then he was gone. The front door closed behind him with a soft click. I stood there, alone, in a house that suddenly felt like a stranger. And for the first time since Evelyn's diagnosis, I wondered if I had missed something. Something big. That night, I didn't sleep. I paced. I sat. I stared at the walls. Every creak of the house made my skin prickle. Every shadow looked like movement. Daniel's words played over and over my mind. Asterisk things you don't know. Things that got her killed. Asterisk. Was it possible? Could there have been something else? Something more? I found myself standing outside Evelyn's study, my hand hovering over the doorknob. She'd loved this room, her little sanctuary, filled with books, her favorite chair, the old oak desk where she'd write letters to her sister. I hadn't been able to bring myself to go in since she died, but now I turned the knob. The air inside was still, thick with dust and memory. Her scent, vanilla and lavender, lingered. I ran my fingers over the spines of her books, the surface of her desk. Then I saw it, a small, rusted key, tucked beneath her favorite poetry collection, barely noticeable unless you were looking for it. I picked it up, turning it over my palm. There was a label, faded with age. Asterisk attic. Don't let him find it. Asterisk. My heart stuttered. Him. Who was him? And what was in the attic that Evelyn had hidden? I stood there, the key digging into my skin, and made a decision. Daniel had given me an ultimatum. Asterisk sell the house. Or else. Asterisk. But Evelyn had left me a clue. I chose else. The attic door was at the end of the upstairs hallway, a narrow panel in the ceiling with a small metal ring to pull it down. I hadn't been up there in years. Evelyn had always been the one to fetch holiday decorations or old photo albums, climbing the rickety folding ladder with an ease that defied her fear of heights. Now, standing beneath it with that rusted key in my hand, I felt like I was trespassing. The ladder groaned as I unfolded it, the sound too loud in the silent house. I climbed slowly, each step creaking under my weight. The air that greeted me was thick with dust and the stale warmth of trapped summer heat. A single bare bulb hung from the rafters, its pull string swaying slightly as if someone had just brushed past it. Boxes lined the space, labeled in Evelyn's neat handwriting. Asterisk Christmas decorations, asterisk Daniel's baby clothes college textbooks. But it wasn't any of those that caught my eye. In the farthest corner, half hidden under an old quilt, was a small wooden chest, the kind with intricate carvings and an iron latch, the kind that looked like it held secrets. My pulse thudded in my throat as I knelt in front of it. The key fit perfectly. Inside were three things: a leather-bound journal, a faded photograph, and a gun. I recoiled, nearly knocking over a stack of boxes. Evelyn had hated guns. She'd made me sell my father's old hunting rifle when we moved in together, saying she wouldn't have one in the house. Yet here it was, tucked away like a shameful confession. I reached for the journal first, my fingers trembling as I flipped it open. The first page was dated 20 years ago, just before Daniel was born. Asterisk, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. I'm sorry. I never wanted to lie to you. Asterisk, the words blurred as my eyes filled with tears. I wiped them away angrily, forcing myself to read on. Asterisk, the man you know as Daniel's father isn't. His name was Thomas Vale. He died 3 months before I met you. I thought I could leave that life behind, but some debts don't stay buried. Asterisk, a cold weight settled in my stomach. I turned the page. Asterisk, the house isn't just a house. It's a vault. Thomas hid something here, something people will kill for. I didn't know when we bought it. By the time I found out, it was too late. If Daniel is telling you to sell, it means they found him. Don't trust him. Don't trust anyone. Asterisk. The photograph slipped from my fingers as I reached for it. A younger Evelyn, standing beside a man I didn't recognize, tall, dark-haired, with Daniel's sharp jawline. Behind them, the house loomed, its windows gleaming like eyes. A floorboard creaked downstairs. I froze, the journal still open in my lap. The sound came again, footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Someone was in the house. The attic entrance was still open, the ladder extended. I lunged for the light, plunging the space into darkness just as the footsteps reached the hallway below. A voice called up, cheerful and familiar. "Dad, you home?" Daniel. But it wasn't the Daniel from the cemetery. This voice was lighter, warmer. The voice of my son before whatever had twisted him into the stranger who threatened me. I didn't answer. The footsteps paused at the base of the ladder. "Dad!" The quilt rustled as I pulled over the chest, hiding it just as his head appeared through the opening. "There you are." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "What are you doing up here?" "Just looking for some of your mom's things." My voice sounded strained in my own ears. He climbed the rest of the way up, glancing around the attic with an expression I couldn't read. "Find anything interesting?" The journal pressed against my back, where I tucked it into my waistband. The gun lay inches from my hand beneath the quilt. "Not really," I said. Daniel nodded, his gaze lingering on the stacks of boxes. Then he sighed, running a hand through his hair, a nervous habit he'd had since childhood. "Listen, about earlier, I was out of line. I've just been stressed with the funeral and everything." I forced myself to nod. "I get it." "Good." He clapped me on the shoulder, his grip too tight. "So, we're good? You'll list the house." The journal seemed to burn against my skin. "Don't trust him." "I'll think about it," I said. His smile faltered. Then he nodded again, sharper this time. "Okay, just don't think too long." He turned to leave, pausing at the top of the ladder. "Oh, and Dad." "Yeah." "Stay out of the attic." Then he was gone, his footsteps retreating down the hall. I waited until I heard the front door close before exhaling. The journal fell to the floor as I slumped forward, my hand shaking. Evelyn had been right. This wasn't just about the house. And whatever was hidden here, people were willing to kill for it, including maybe my own son. The journal burned a hole in my pocket as I crept down the attic ladder. Every creak of the wood beneath my feet sounded like a gunshot in the heavy silence. Daniel was gone for now, but his warning echoed in my skull. Stay out of the attic. I should have listened, but I couldn't. Not now. The house felt different as I moved through it, the walls pressing in like they were holding their breath. Evelyn's presence was everywhere. In the floral curtains she'd picked out, in the faint scent of her perfume still clinging to the couch, in the way the floorboards groaned in all the familiar places. But there was something else now, too. Attention. Awaiting. I locked myself in the bathroom and turned on the shower to mask the sound before pulling out the journal. The pages were yellow with age, the ink faded in places, but Evelyn's handwriting was unmistakable. Asterisk, Thomas wasn't just a man. He was part of something bigger. A group that called themselves a vault. They didn't deal in money or power. They dealt in secrets. The kind that could ruin lives. The kind people would kill for. Asterisk. I flipped the page, my fingers leaving damp smudges on the paper. Asterisk, when Thomas died, they came for me. They thought he'd told me where he hid his last collection. I didn't know then, but I found out, and I hid it better than he ever could. Asterisk, a collection of what? Documents? Blackmail? Something worse? The next entry was dated just a few months before Evelyn got sick. Asterisk, I think they found me. Daniel's been asking strange questions about the house, about the basement. He doesn't know I hear him on the phone late at night, talking in a voice that doesn't sound like his. They've gotten to him. Or maybe he was never really mine to begin with. Asterisk, the words hit me like a punch to the gut. Was she saying Daniel wasn't our son? That he'd been replaced? No, That was impossible, wasn't it? I thought of the way Daniel had looked at me in the cemetery, the coldness in his eyes, the way he'd said, or else like it was nothing, like he wasn't talking to his own father. The shower hissed behind me, the mirror fogging over until my reflection disappeared. Just like my life, blurred beyond recognition in the span of a single day. I needed to see the basement. The basement door was in the kitchen, tucked behind the pantry. Evelyn had always kept it locked, joking that it was where she hid the bodies. Now, I wondered if there'd been more truth to that than I'd realized. The key was hanging where it always had, on the hook by the back door, labeled Garden Shed, in Evelyn's looping script, a decoy, just like everything else. The lock clicked open with a groan. The stairs descended into darkness, the air that wafted up damp and smelling of earth. I flicked the light switch, but nothing happened. Of course, I grabbed a flashlight from the junk drawer and pointed it down the steps. The beam cut through black, illuminating concrete walls, a washer and dryer, stacks of old paint cans, normal basement stuff. But then the light caught something else. A section of the wall was different, newer concrete, hastily patched. And in front of it, a shovel leaned against the washing machine, its blade caked with dried dirt. My breath came faster as I approached. The patch was rough, uneven, like someone had done in a hurry. I ran my fingers over it and felt something give. A loose chunk of mortar crumbled away at my touch. Behind it, something glinted in the flashlight's beam. Metal. I dug at the mortar with my fingers, my nails splitting as I clawed at the wall. A larger piece broke free, revealing the edge of what looked like a safe door. My pulse roared in my ears. This was it. Whatever Thomas had hidden, whatever Evelyn had died for, it was here. I grabbed the shovel and swung it at the wall. The sound was deafening in the silent house. Concrete shattered, raining down onto the floor. One more swing and the safe was exposed. A small, rusted thing with a combination lock. I didn't know the combination, but Evelyn would have left a clue. I turned back to the journal, flipping through the pages until I found it. A series of numbers scribbled in the margin, next to a note that made my blood run cold. Asterisk, if you're opening this, it means I'm dead, and it means Daniel is one of them. Don't let him get what's inside. Asterisk, the numbers turned the lock with a series of satisfying clicks. The safe door creaked open. Inside was a single unmarked VHS tape, and a note in Evelyn's handwriting. Asterisk, play me. Asterisk, the VHS tape sat heavy in my hands, the plastic casing cool against my skin. I hadn't held one of these in years, not since Daniel was a kid, and we recorded school plays on the old camcorder. But Evelyn had kept the player tucked away in the entertainment center, like she knew it would be needed someday. The TV flickered to life with a static hum as I pushed the tape in. For a moment there was nothing, just gray fuzz and the hiss of blank noise. Then the screen resolved into an image that made my stomach drop. It was our living room, but not as it was now. The furniture was different, older, the couch a faded floral print I barely recognized from when we first moved in. And there, in the center of the frame, stood Evelyn. Younger, healthier, but her face was pale, her hands shaking as she adjusted the camera. Asterisk, if you're watching this, it means they won. Asterisk, her voice was barely above a whisper, her eyes darting toward the hallway like she expected someone to burst in at any second. Asterisk, I don't have much time. They're coming, but you need to know the truth. Asterisk, she took a shaky breath, her fingers twisting the hem of her sweater. Asterisk, the house isn't just a house. It's a asterisk. A loud bang cut her off, the sound of a door slamming somewhere off camera. Evelyn flinched, her head snapping toward the noise. Asterisk, oh God, they're here. Asterisk, the video cut to black. For a few seconds, there was nothing. Then the image returned, but this time, the camera was angled differently, like it had been knocked over. The view was tilted, showing only the legs of the coffee table and a slice of the hallway. And then he walked into frame. A man, tall, dark-haired, wearing a suit that looked out of place in our humble living room. Thomas Vale, I recognized him instantly from the photo in the attic, but something was wrong. His movements were too smooth, too precise, like a marionette pulled by invisible strings. And when he spoke, his voice didn't match his mouth, the words lagging just a fraction of a second behind. Asterisk Evelyn. Asterisk. The name slithered out of him, dripping with something that wasn't quite malice. Something worse. Asterisk. You shouldn't have run. Asterisk. The camera jostled again as Evelyn backed away, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Asterisk. Stay away from me. Asterisk. Thomas, or whatever was wearing his skin, tilted his head. Asterisk. You know what we want. Where is it? Asterisk. Asterisk. I don't know. Asterisk. Asterisk. Liar. Asterisk. He lunged. The camera toppled completely, the screen filling with static as the sound of struggle played over the speakers. Evelyn's choked scream, the sickening crack of bone, then silence. When the image returned, Thomas was gone, and Evelyn lay motionless on the floor. For a heartbeat, I thought she was dead. Then her fingers twitched. Slowly, painfully, she dragged herself back into frame, her face streaked with blood. They think it's here, she rasped. Asterisk, but it's not. It's in the asterisk. A noise cut her off. A child's laughter, high and sweet and wrong. Evelyn's eyes went wide with terror. Asterisk, no, not him. Please, asterisk. The camera cut off. The tape ended. I sat there in the dark, the remote clenched in my hand so tightly the plastic creaked. That laughter, I knew that laugh. It was Daniel's, but not the Daniel I knew. The Daniel from before, from when he was 5 years old. The same year the doctors said he'd nearly died from a fever that came out of nowhere. The same year he'd started sleepwalking. The same year he'd begun whispering to someone, asterisk something asterisk, in his room at night. A voice answered from the hallway behind me. Asterisk, Dad? Asterisk. I turned. Daniel stood in the doorway, his face half-shadowed. Asterisk, what are you watching? Asterisk. The remote slipped from my fingers and clattered to the floor. On the TV screen, static hissed like a living thing, painting Daniel's face in flickering shades of gray. Just old home videos, I said, my voice too loud in the suffocating silence. Daniel didn't blink. His eyes, too dark in the dim light, remained fixed on me. Asterisk of Mom? Asterisk. Something about the way he said it made my skin prickle. Not grief, not curiosity. Hunger. I shifted to block the VCR, my pulse hammering in my throat. Asterisk. Yeah, from before you were born. Asterisk. A slow smile spread across his face. Not Daniel's smile. The muscles moved wrong, like they'd been stitched on by someone who'd only seen human expressions in pictures. Asterisk. I'd love to see. Asterisk. He took a step forward. The air grew thick, tasting of copper and wet earth. The shadows in the hallway behind him seemed to twist, stretching too long across the walls. Not now, I said, reaching blindly behind me to eject the tape. Asterisk, it's late. We should. Asterisk. Asterisk, where is it? Asterisk. The question wasn't in Daniel's voice anymore. It was layered, a chorus of whispers scraping against each other. The way I imagine a swarm of insects might sound if they could speak. The lights flickered. In the flashes of darkness, I saw it. His face slipping, the skin rippling like water disturbed by a stone. Asterisk, you watch the tape. Asterisk, another step closer. The floorboards groaned under his weight. Too heavy for a man his size. Asterisk, you know what she hid. Asterisk, my back hit the entertainment center. The tape was in my hand now, the plastic cold against my sweating palm. Daniel, I tried, the name ash in my mouth. Asterisk, where are you? Asterisk, his head tilted, the motion too sharp, too many degrees to be human. Asterisk, yours. Asterisk, a thing where my son's skin smiled, teeth gleaming in the dark. Asterisk, until you open the walls. Asterisk, the overhead light bulb exploded in a shower of glass. In the sudden blackness, I ran, down the hall, past the kitchen. Somewhere behind me, I heard it following, not footsteps, something wetter, something dragging. The basement door was still open. I crashed down the stairs, the smell of damp concrete, and something older, something rotting, filling my nose. The safe gaped open in the broken wall, a yawning mouth. The shovel was still there. I grabbed it just as the thing reached the bottom step. In the dim glow of the flashlight I dropped earlier, I saw its true shape. Daniel's form melting like candle wax, the skin sloughing away to reveal something glistening and black beneath. She lied to you. It hissed, the voice coming from everywhere at once. Asterisk, the vault isn't in the house. Asterisk, it lunged. The shovel connected with a sickening crunch. The thing screamed. A sound that wasn't human, wasn't animal, but something that belonged deep underground where the light never reached. It staggered back, ichor oozing from the wound. That's when I saw it. Behind where the thing had been standing, the wall was bleeding, not metaphorically. Thick, dark liquid seeped from the cracks in the concrete, running in rivulets toward the drain in the floor. And with it came whispers, dozens, hundreds of them, all murmuring the same word. Asterisk, Thomas. Asterisk. The thing recovered faster than I thought possible. One moment it was crouched, the next it had me pinned against the washing machine, its fingers, too many fingers, digging into my throat. He's in the walls. It breathed, the stench of decay pouring from its mouth. Asterisk. And you're gonna let him out. Asterisk. The flashlight flickered. In the dying light, the last thing I saw was a VHS tape, still clutched in my hand, and Evelyn's final words, scrawled across the label in shaky handwriting. Asterisk, the house isn't the vault. You are. Asterisk. The pressure on my throat vanished as the flashlight died completely. For 3 heartbeats, there was nothing but the sound of my own ragged breathing in the wet, clicking noise the thing made as it moved in the dark. Then the whisper started, not from the thing holding me, from the walls. Michael, my name, spoken in Evelyn's voice. A fresh wave of terror crashed over me. That wasn't possible. Evelyn was dead. I'd buried her myself. The thing holding me stiffened, its grip loosening just enough for me to twist away. I stumbled backward, my shoulder slamming into the concrete wall, which gave way like rotten wood. My arm plunged elbow deep into something cold and pulsing. The whispers became screams. I wrenched free, chunks of wet plaster clinging to my skin. Where my arm had penetrated, the wall bulged outward, the surface rippling like something was trying to push through from the other side. The thing that had been Daniel let out a shriek that shattered the remaining light bulbs in their sockets. Asterisk, you touched him. Asterisk, the accusation hung in the air as the basement descended into chaos. The walls were moving, not just the one I damaged. All of them. The concrete warped and swelled, cracked spiderwebbing across the surface as black ichor oozed from every fissure. The drain in the floor gurgled violently, spewing back the thick liquid that had just disappeared down it. The thing that wasn't Daniel lunged for me again, but the floor buckled beneath it, sending it sprawling. The shovel clattered to the ground near my feet. I didn't hesitate. 1 swing. 2. On the 3rd strike, something cracked, not the thing's skull, but something beneath its skin. The face split open like overripe fruit, and what spilled out wasn't blood. It was dirt, grave dirt. Entangled in the roots and soil was a single, staring eye that I recognized instantly. Daniel's. My son's blue eye, impossibly alive, rolling wildly in its nest of worms and decaying matter. The sight froze me in place long enough for the thing to swipe at my legs, its fingers elongating into root-like tendrils that wrapped around my ankles. He's waking up. It gurgled through a mouthful of soil. Asterisk, Thomas always wakes up hungry. Asterisk, above us, the house groaned like a living thing. A thunderous crash came from upstairs, the sound of furniture being overturned, of glass shattering. Something was moving through the house above us. Something big. The tendrils around my ankles tightened, dragging me toward the broken wall. The hole I'd made was wider now, the edges flexing like lips around a mouth. From within the darkness, something glistened. Teeth, not human, not animal. The kind of teeth that belong to things that live in the dark between worlds. I grabbed the shovel again, bringing it down on the tendrils with all my strength. They snapped like rotten twigs, spraying foul-smelling liquid across the floor. The thing screamed, a sound that was abruptly cut off as the floor beneath it collapsed entirely, swallowing it into the hungry dark below. I didn't wait to see what else might come crawling out. I ran up the stairs, through the kitchen, and straight into Daniel, the real Daniel. My son stood in the hallway, his face pale but human, his eyes wide with terror. Asterisk, Dad? Asterisk, his voice shook. Asterisk, what's happening to the house? Asterisk, behind him, the walls pulsed. The ceiling dripped black sludge that sizzled where it hit the carpet. And from deep below us, something laughed. Not the thing that had worn Daniel's skin. Something older. Something that had been waiting a very long time to be let out. Daniel grabbed my arm, his fingers warm and very much alive. Asterisk, we have to go. Now. Asterisk. But as I looked into his eyes, both of them whole and blue and frightened, I remembered the journal. Don't trust him. And I hesitated. The walls chose that moment to split open. The walls didn't just crack, they birthed. Wet, glistening tendrils exploded through the plaster, wrapping around Daniel's arms and legs before I could react. He screamed. A human scream, a child scream, as the thing in the walls began pulling him apart. I grabbed his hand, my fingers slipping against the black slime coating his skin. Hold on. His bones creaked. His shoulder popped from its socket with a sickening snap. The smell of copper and rotting earth filled the hallway as his fingers began to stretch, his skin splitting at the knuckles. I let go, not from fear, from memory, because I'd seen this before. 18 years earlier, the hospital room smelled of antiseptic and fear. Little Daniel, just 5 years old, thrashed in the bed, his fever so high the nurses kept checking thermometer for errors. 107.3, Dr. Mendelsohn murmured. That's not possible. Evelyn clutched my arm, her nails digging into my flesh. Do something. The monitor shrieked as Daniel's heart stopped. For 3 minutes and 17 seconds, my son was dead. Then he sat up and asked for Thomas. Present day, the thing wearing Daniel's remains smiled at me with too many teeth. You remember now. It said in a voice that wasn't a voice at all, just air forced through broken vocal cords. You were there when they planted me in this flesh. The walls pulsed around us, breathing in time with the thing's words. I backed toward the front door, my hand closing around the rusted attic key still in my pocket. Evelyn's last gift. The Daniel thing tilted its head, strands of muscle snapping as it moved. She tried to burn me out, starve me, but a name is a powerful anchor. It lunged. I threw the key. The moment the rusted metal touched its skin, the thing shrieked, a sound that shattered every window in the house. The walls recoiled, the tendrils withering to black dust. I didn't wait to see if it worked. I ran, out the door, into the rain. Halfway down the driveway, I turned back, just in time to see every light in the house flare blindingly bright, before going dark forever. The rain fell in sheets as I collapsed at the end of the driveway, my lungs burning. The house stood silent behind me, a perfect suburban home with its shattered windows and peeling paint. No one would ever guess what lived inside those walls. My hand shook as I pulled the small, rusted key from my pocket, the one Evelyn had hidden beneath her poetry book. The metal was warm now, almost hot to the touch, and etched with symbols I hadn't noticed before. Not just a key, a ward, a name. Thomas Vale pulsed in my palm like a heartbeat. 3 days later, the fire department called it faulty wiring. The police called it a tragedy. The neighbors called it a shame. No one questioned why I stood in the pouring rain watching my house burn, the attic key melting the flames along with everything else. Least of all the social worker assigned to Daniel's case. He's lucky to be alive, she said, nodding toward the ambulance where a blanket-wrapped figure sat quietly. Miraculous, he got out before the fire spread. I said nothing, because the thing sitting in that ambulance wasn't my son. Not anymore. The real Daniel had died years ago in that hospital bed. What came home was something else, something that had been growing inside him, feeding on his memories, wearing his face like a suit. Evelyn had known. That's why she'd hidden the key. That's why she'd begged me to run. The truth about Thomas Vale. The journal's final pages told the real story. Thomas Vale wasn't a man. He was a concept, a hunger, a thing that thrived on names and memories and the spaces between heartbeats. He'd been trapped in the walls of that house long before it was built, buried deep in the black soil beneath the foundation. The Thomas Vale Evelyn knew, just another victim, another skin to wear. Epilogue, 1 year later. The apartment is small but sunny. No basement, no attic, no hidden spaces for things to grow. The social worker says Daniel's recovery is remarkable. The therapist says his nightmares will fade with time. But sometimes when I wake in the dead hours of night, I find him standing at the foot of my bed, perfectly still, barely breathing. And when the streetlights flicker just right, I swear I can see the roots moving beneath his skin, waiting, growing, until the day he asked me the question I've been dreading. Asterisk, Dad, where's the key? Asterisk, end.